Good morning and welcome to Eurotech. I'm going to show you what we have in the shop today, which, as you can see behind me, is a nice red-orange MGB. This MG is a 1977 model, so it's one of the very last years of production, 1980 being a very limited run of a few final MGs. And of course, this is a rubber bumper MGB. The rubber bumpers, to comply with federal safety standards, they finally had to go to a rubber impact resistant bumper, which a lot of MG aficionados didn't like. I happen to like the rubber bumper cars. I will explain why. This car also has the factory original Ross style wheels. Coming around to the front of the car, we see that lovely controversial rubber bumper, and below it, of course, is a rubberized spoiler shape, which does help aerodynamically, and the nice thing is it's somewhat rubbery, so it's a little bit hard to damage when you hit a curb with it. Coming around the front, we see the car is dusty. It's been stored for quite some time. It just came out of storage to have a little bit of work done on it here at Eurotech. Overall, the car is just in outstanding condition. It's the original color, but it was repainted about 5 years ago, and that top was replaced when the car was repainted. Later I'm going to show you how to properly lower the top on an MGB. And coming around to the rear, again, Ross style wheels. You see the clearance, the side marker lights, which also are a requirement for federal safety standards. And all the chrome on this car, Moss Motors makes a very nice repaint kit, which consists of chrome and gaskets for all the lights that have to be removed when you paint the car. It's a very nice kit. The price is very reasonable. Really does dress the car up very nicely after a paint job. I'm going to give you a quick look inside the trunk. Trunk access is very easy. You can use the key to lock it. Occasionally people do. Push the button, lift, raise it up. Inside we have a trunk where there's room for a suitcase or two. Don't know what that is. Typical junk you find in your trunk, including, this is a boot cover, which will cover the boot end of the car when the top is down. Very important, when you go to lower this trunk, you will bend the trunk if you don't use this process. You must lift slightly, depress this little tab right here, which releases the trunk, the device that holds the trunk lid up. Then you can lower it. If you try to lower the trunk without depressing that tab, you will bend the trunk lid, and ultimately these hinges will be broken when that happens enough. So that's something to be careful about. Lift slightly, push, and then you can just drop the trunk lid down. And it closes solidly, supposedly. We can show you the interior of the car, starting on the driver's side with the driver's features. You see a beautifully, nicely instrumented dash with the a tach and a speedometer, and a clock, fuel gauge, oil pressure, and water temperature gauge, nicely laid out, very nicely balanced. The wood trim on this car is not factory, it's an add-on. I really do think it makes the car much more attractive. And of course, you will notice this car has a choke cable, a manual choke cable, which again, a 1977 wouldn't have that, would have had an automatic choke, but since this car has been converted to dual carburetors, we have two chokes. We have switches on the stalk on the steering column for turn signal and high beam, low beam, and our horn and windshield wiper switch are on the other side. Moving towards the center of the car, we have these ventilation vents. This car is not air conditioned. If it were, cold air would come from there. If you drive it on this December day, cold air will come from there anyway. And then looking down, we have an aftermarket radio, our heater controls, a cigarette lighter, and of course the shifter for the delightful 4-speed MG transmission. working our way over past the center vents, we have a nice glove compartment, which is actually usable, and there's room in there to put things. Carpets. The carpets in this car are absolute factory. They're the original carpets. These seats are the proper fabric, and they are original seats. They have a lever which will recline the seat back, and there's also a knob on the other side which you have to activate so you can flip the seat forward. That knob, again, you can see it moves this hook right here. That knob, again, is required as part of the U.S. Federal Safety Standards to keep the seat back from flying forward and forcing you into the dash in case of an accident. Standard on all cars since 1968. Probably a good thing overall. Headrest, standard, also required by federal law. Again, these nice factory seats in very good condition. This car only has about 35,000 miles on it. It's been nicely kept its entire life. It has a data plate with all sorts of extraneous information on it. For an added little bonus, we're going to show you the cold starting procedure on the MGB. I say cold, it's sitting inside a heated garage, so it's not really cold. This is the first time it started in a couple of days. So the first thing we want to do, of course, is make sure the car is in neutral. Wiggle back and forth on the stick. Yes, it's in neutral. Key in the ignition switch. Then we're going to take the T-shaped choke handle. You notice it says on it, choke and lock. So we're going to pull it out all the way, turn it to lock it. Then it's a simple matter of cranking until the car starts. And monitor the all-important oil pressure. Now, as soon as it starts, we can usually push the choke in about halfway. The fast idle on this car is turned down very low. Little tap on the tachometer and away we go. So that's all it takes. You notice the red ignition light is on. It's going to stay on until the car makes enough RPM to energize the alternator. And of course we have oil pressure. We're going to have a look under the hood of the car, but looking under the hood starts right here with this T-shaped handle with a picture of a bonnet open, or a hood in America, bonnet. We grab that T-handle, pull it to open the hood. It's been that way on MGB since 1963. It's just a lovely tactile device. Under the hood of our 1977 MGB, the first thing we're going to notice is this car has dual SU carburetors. 77s were equipped with a single carburetor with an automatic choke. This one has been converted, backdated, you might say, to a dual carburetor setup. This improves the car, it improves the power of the car somewhat. It makes the throttle so much more responsive, especially at lower RPMs. The engine runs much smoother. Of course, the penalty you pay is there is always a slightly richer mixture, which over a very long term, we're talking in excess of 100,000 miles, it could cause some engine wear. Now, in addition to the dual SUs, we also find in here the gold-colored power brake booster, and of course the dual-cylinder power brake, the brake master cylinder mounted to the booster. We have the delightfully unusual MGB top radiator hose that has this extra little thing added to divert warm water over to the heater, which the heater is right there. A good Smith's unit. It actually is adequate to keep the car warm. Wouldn't try it in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories in Canada. You might get kind of cold. An adequate radiator to cool the car. Hard to get a shot of, but this car has dual electric cooling fans, which do an excellent job of keeping the car cool. You will notice over here an unused bracket. That's where the smog pump that presently is in the trunk would be bolted to the car. Pipes would go into the holes that these bolts have filled up, and they would recirculate some fresh air into the engine. More emission controls post-1968. This car has an alternator, which all post-1968 MGs have. There you see the nice shiny heater control valve to turn the heater on and off. Working our way over this way, we see the the windshield washer fluid reservoir. Behind that is the canister for evaporative emissions. I want you to notice this car also has a Lucas sport coil on it, that beautiful gold coil that requires no ballast resistor. It also still retains the Opus MG electronic ignition. Very good combination, these two things. This interesting little knob here is where you fill the top off the cooling system. You'll remove that, take your large adjustable wrench or possibly a spanner and remove that and pour coolant in there. Over here we have the coolant overflow tank, which completes our tour of the cooling system. Closing the hood. Closing the hood is the same as closing the trunk. We have this nice rod. We have to depress this tang. We have to lift slightly, depress, then we can lower the trunk. You have to be a little bit careful closing the hood because you need to line things up properly. What you primarily need to line up is that in that hole, and as long as that goes in straight, you're home free. I'm going to take a minute or two to show you where the battery in this car is located. It's one of those cars where the battery is hard to get to. It's awkward. So I've partially removed the top, flipped the back window up to gain access to this shelf behind the seats. And on that shelf there is a piece of carpet. If we lift the piece of carpet, we see a door, a compartment with a lid on it. The lid is held down with Zeus fasteners, pronounced with a Z but spelled with a D, Zeus. To remove them, we use this tool, which is a Zeus fastener tool, which is like a screwdriver, but it's curved in the end and has a, how about that? It's a snap-on Zeus fastener tool. There's a curve in the end that matches the curve in the head of the fastener. So we remove those fasteners, lift the lid. Underneath is the battery. You can see this is not real easy to get to. It's kind of hard to deal with if you have a dead battery situation, which is why this car has a battery cutoff switch. You can see the blue light blinking to indicate that it's active. That switch will automatically cut the battery off if the battery voltage drops below 11.8 volts. And then using a remote switch you can re-energize the battery when you get ready to start the car and go somewhere. We want to lower this top. Let's pretend like it's not this cold December day here in North Carolina, but it's a nice pretty sunny spring or fall day and we want to lower this top. So let's see what we have to do that. To lower the top, do you push a button on the dash like you do in your nice late model Mercedes or BMW? No, we don't. This is a British car. It's more fun. To start with, we have to get these sun visors out of the way because they're hiding a latch like that. So, sun visors out. As we move the sun visors, we also need to unsnap this snap, which goes right there. So, snaps unsnapped, unvisor out, sun visor out, latch. Lower it. Lower it. And the top does pop up a little bit. That's step one. Now we can come around back here just behind the window, and what do we find? Another snap. So we can unsnap that snap, and if we look below that, we find yet another snap that we need to unsnap. And we can come over to the driver's side and repeat the process. Snap up here. One of those delightful British car snaps down there that we can unsnap, and you can see what it snaps into. So then we can go outside of the car. The next thing we want to do is unhook something from here, but to do that we're going to unsnap these hidden snaps along here. So we just lift, lift, lift those snaps. Then we can get this hook out of here, which takes a little bit of strength. Pull, pull, pull. See what it hooks into and what it hooks to. So now over here on the passenger side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lift the fasteners loose. Now, as an alternative to struggling with this, you could pull the bar loose from the back. It's a bit of a struggle also, and I'm going to show you how that works in just a minute, but you can go to the front of the top and lift it. It will loosen this enough so that we can get this bar loose. The bar slides into a fold of fabric here, and the bar hooks under these little hooks right here, and that secures the back of the top. When that's done, it makes it a little bit easier to pull that fastener out. Now we can take care of the back window. So what we want to do is flip the back window up over the top like this. And we want to make sure that, well, we're then going to fold the quarter windows in on this seam. The idea is we don't want to bend any of the plastic windows. The idea is we don't want to put a crease in any of the plastic windows on the car. So we're going to come over and fold the passenger side up now. And when we folded the passenger side along the seam, we'll flip the whole window assembly up on top of the top. Then hopefully, it's going to take two hands, but we can then start to lift the whole assembly back into the back of the car. And down it goes with the window rolled over the top of the top. Doing it this way, I'm going to show you an alternate way to do this. Doing it this way leaves the most room behind the seats, so you've got some storage room back here. And of course, if you have a boot cover like this car does, then you can snap that boot cover on. That concludes our tour of the 77 MGB. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more interesting and unusual cars. Thank you.